How's it going, everybody? Sir Douglas here. 2025 season is just around the corner. Final cuts have been made, the workouts are all done. It's time to start playing for real. It all begins tomorrow, June the 5th, with Ottawa and Saskatchewan kicking the season off in the city that rhymes with fun. But your reigning and defending 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts kick things off on Friday Night Football in La Belle Provence against the Montreal Alouettes in the East Final rematch. But ultimately, there's still some questions that remain. How does the team look? Where do I think the Argos end up this season? Let's start talking about it. So on June the 1st, all the cuts were published on argonauts.ca, and there was a couple of surprises. There's a couple of names that actually jump out on this list in particular very, very quickly. The first one is right up here. It's right here. Both Kevin Brown and Kadeem Carey. Last year's starting running back and the man who was tapped to be his replacement, both gone. Basically, I don't know, for probably both, well, who knows? I'm thinking it might have been, for both it might have been salary. That would be my guess. I mean, could also be age because Argos are going to go with Deontay McMahon and Mayan Williams in the backfield this year, and it's, to me, a rather stunning move toward a youth movement because both McMahon and Williams are in the early to mid 20s, whereas Kadeem Carey was 32 and Kevin Brown was 28. And I mean that was reflected in pretty much all of those. Reflected in all of those. Other notable subtractions. Well, there's another big one right here. Cameron Dukes, last year's starter for half the season because he was able to steer the club through Chad Kelly's 9-game suspension, and he was ultimately one of 3 that we ended up using last year. But he unfortunately was outperformed, completely outperformed. When I was watching the preseason games, I noticed that both Tucker Horn and the latecomer to camp, Jared Dagey, both were, I wouldn't say complete opposites, but I would say they were much better than what Cameron Dukes was bringing to the table. Basically, with Cameron Dukes, I saw that he was still repeating the same mistakes that he had last year, where he wasn't going through his reads quick enough. He was holding onto the ball too long, and ultimately he would end up making a bad decision, like say going to the check down when there was 2 or 3 guys wide open in the secondary, or something, or even just taking a sack when you really shouldn't have. So I mean, then there's the short yardage game, and that's probably the reason why the Argos did get Jared Dagey because he is a bona fide short yardage quarterback. Cameron Dukes, not so much, and the less that's said about his game, the better. One more big one that I thought was interesting was right here, Deontay Evans. I honestly thought he still had a lot left in the tank, but I mean, but apparently, once you came into camp, you take a look at what the Argos had in the secondary when it comes to being like a dynamic defensive back core. I mean, I don't think personally there probably wasn't a fit with Deontay Evans because you have Benji Franklin, who most improved player last year, and he's gonna really come into his own this year. I think Mark Milton, same thing. Tyshawn Blackburn, same thing. Tavares McFadden. So really, there wasn't a lot of room to have someone who was keyword was a half decent defensive back. But I mean, unfortunately, football's a shitty business. That's all I got to say about that. Now moving on to the main event. First, now coming up to Friday night in Montreal. Big changes in both clubs. You're probably going to have an unexpected result in this game. Well, I mean, first of all, Montreal, their running attack has been completely revamped because I remember it was like last year or the year before they had potential. There was quite a they had. I mean, let's see. In the last couple of years, they had William Stanback, Jess Renantwi, and Walter Fletcher. All three are now gone, replaced with someone who I think is one of the notorious Argo killers out there, and Sean Thomas Erlington. I'm expecting him to he could potentially have a good game coming up. Then there's Montreal's aerial attack. That's going to test the Argo secondary big time, because you still have Austin Mack back there. You still have one of the Philpotts back there. They're going to really stress the ball through the air, and having Sean Thomas Erlington in your backfield, who can find those holes, this could end up with a result that is kind of unexpected. Then you go to the Argos side of the ball, where you have the changes in running back, you have the wholesale change on the defensive line, but then you still have the linebacking core, which is still solid, with Wynton McManus leading it back there. You still have the aforementioned secondary, which is mostly returned from last year, and then you have the quarterbacking situation, because we don't know who's going to start, because Chad Kelly is practicing, but we don't know if they're going to start Nick Arbuckle or they're going to start Chad Kelly. My inclination is thinking Arbuckle's going to take the start, and they're going to leave Chad off keep him for the home opener. Keep him for the home opener next week. Now, bear in mind, I filmed this not knowing what the depth chart is going to be, so if there is a change, I'll let you keep an eye on the shorts. I'll post any sort of thoughts if there's any changes there. Now, as for the season itself, with regards to the East Division, all four teams are in a position to challenge for the top spot. Every single one of them. I mean, Montreal is hoping that their Davis Alexander, their quarterback, is going to be right up there. And don't kid yourself, they have McLeod Bethel Thompson as the backup. Former Argo, Grey Cup champion in 2022. He can give Davis some good pointers there. Ottawa, of course, looking to improve from last year, not fade down the stretch like they did last year. And Hamilton is looking to improve massively on their result while still sweeping the Argos in the process. Well, then again, let's face it, if Hamilton went 3-15 and those 3 wins came against the Argos, they'd still call it a winning season. Nonetheless, though, when it comes to actual positioning, Toronto could take first in the East. There's a very good possibility that they would, and it's just because they wouldn't need it. This year they've got the Week 21 bye, a bye in the last week of the season. So let's just say, sake of example, Toronto clinches the season in Week 16. Starters for the most part get rested Week 20, which means final week of the season and the East semifinal week as well. So that would be 3 weeks. 3 weeks without the starters seeing reps. I personally don't want to see that, because if you remember 2023, that backfired spectacularly in their face. 16-2, all the confidence in the world, and then all of a sudden, giant, big ol' steaming pile of manure on the field in the East Finals, which led to a Montreal Grey Cup. So, personally, I don't want to see that happen. Yeah, so after all of that, where do I see it? I can honestly say that the order of finish from last year is probably going to be the order of finish this year, except I think the points are going to be much closer, because last year it was 9 points separating first and last in the division. I could see that gap narrowing, but it's more, I hate to say it, it's probably going to be Montreal first, Toronto second, Ottawa third, Hamilton fourth once again. But like I said, I think it's gonna be much, much, much closer than people realize. Now, as for the schedule for the week, unfortunately, there was not going to be a away game live stream and no instant reaction. It's just going to be the sober review coming up. Probably going to get that posted on here on Monday, and then next week it's going to be the home opener, which I'm going to be at. So yeah. With all that said and done, go Argos. I'll see you guys again soon. Like and subscribe. We'll see you at for the Upon Sober review over the weekend. Cheers, everybody.